First and foremost is the Nagaland government's stand, official stand, on the Uniform Civil Code. The 22nd Law Commission has notified on the 14th of June, I think, giving us a 1 month's time up to the 14th of July, but they have extended the period seeking opinions and responses of the people of this country. They've extended it up to the 28th, which will expire a few days from now. So having observed the sentiments of our people and the resentment against such kind of laws, if it is enacted, so many individuals, so many civil society organizations, so many tribal bodies, organizations openly come out with statements that they will not accept the UCC imposition on us. So after observing the sentiments of the people, the government of Nagaland today have found it necessary to place on record our own stand to the 22nd Law Commission dealing with this UCC. So the government stand by the people, and we have clearly mentioned there that we have so many other problems confronting us. In our 60 years journey as a state, it has not been an easy task. Successive leaders, successive governments have come and gone. And when we study our surroundings, we have so many internal as well as external problems confronting the state. So it would do well, the center would do well if they don't bring in so much more issues again to compound the situation with which the government is just managing. It's just managing. Ours is a very small state, one of the smallest states in the country, because we have been bifurcated into 4 states in this country also. And we have been bifurcated by the McMahon line, the international boundary. So across the country also we have our people, but as is the fact today, we are a small state in this country, but with a very small population also, comparatively. But our problems are much, much larger than some of the largest states, largest parts of this country. So we appealed to the government of India that they have to restrain themselves, review these decisions, and exempt our state from the purview of the UCC being conducted by the Law Commission of India. So here we were very much relieved when a person, no other than the Home Minister of India, the Union Home Minister himself, has in no uncertain terms told us that the government is actively considering for exemption of Christians and some tribal areas in the country from falling within the purview of the Law Commission this time. So that has come as a great relief, and we are hopeful that the government of India will stand by its word and its commitments to us and uphold the sanctity of the Article 371A once again. But this submission to the Law Commission on the 4th of July, we had to throw some light on the background history of our people whenever we have encountered and came across different authorities who had come in our land. The first was the British Empire in the middle of the 19th century, and how after stiff resistance from our people, our ancestors. After so many lives were lost, so many battles were fought, on both sides we have lost precious lives. Finally, with a No More Wars treaty, we have had a peaceful situation in our land, and understanding was restored, and we have been working with them for some time. From then on, they were the first people to have set foot in our land. We have always stood our grounds and maintained to the authority that they should not interfere into our internal ways of life in the different aspects of our life, that is, the religious, the social, the customary practices, and not to exploit our land. So after having agreed on these aspects only, we cooperated and worked together with these authorities. They had also kept their word, never interfered into our ways of lives, never exploited our land. And you have seen, in 1873, the Bengal Eastern Frontiers Regulation Act was enacted by the British Parliament, which brought about the inner line permit concept. So with this, they went further on, and as we are different from the rest of our surroundings, especially the mainland India today, they have kept us outside of the reform scheme in 1935 and placed us under the excluded area, excluded and partially excluded areas under the reform scheme of 1935. So this continued, and we were protected under the clauses and provisions of the DIFRA. And in the transition, when in 1947 the British Empire was about to leave the shores of our continent, liberating India as a nation, on the eve of the independence of India, our elders knew that the shift of power and authority was about to take place. So our leaders met the government of India, who was represented by Sir Akbar Hydari, and entered into a 9 points agreement. Popularly we know it as the 9 points agreement. This was in June 1947, just 2 months away from India's independence. So even there, when you study the points, it is all about not interfering into our ways of life in the social, religious, and customary practices of our people, and that our land should be protected against any form of exploitation by continuing with this Bengal Eastern Frontiers Regulation Act of 1873 and strictly imposed the inner line permit. So this went on. That was our first agreement with the authorities of present-day India. Unfortunately, this period of disagreement did not last very long for reasons on both sides, which I don't want to delve into the details. You know history better than me, so you'll find it in the documents. So this unfortunate breakdown of the understanding led to such a situation where the entire region, present-day northeastern hills, this region with the epicenter in that time, Naga Hills, it turned into a war zone. There was conflict, severe conflict, and we have lost many precious lives, again on both sides. So after so much civilian casualties, it turned out to be a human crisis. So both sides declared a general amnesty in 1957. Taking advantage of this period, many social leaders, tribal leaders, many administrative officers, and educated people have tried to restore normalcy, side by side, persuade our political leaders of those years to try and come to an understanding. But even after 3 years of persuasion, hectic parleys, negotiations, they refused to come for any kind of talks across the table at the end. So the situation having turned into a human crisis and civilians being the casualties, responsible tribal leaders could not simply turn a blind eye and remain silent. So they undertook to themselves that they have to organize themselves into a certain body, and under one temporary umbrella, they had to do something to broker peace. So the tribal leaders, the Naga tribal leaders of present-day Nagaland, they organized themselves and they started negotiating with the government of India. After many years of negotiation, they formulated the 16 points, that these will be the points which they will negotiate with the government of India, and if they agree to recognize our history and our struggles through ages, then maybe some kind of understanding can be reached. And that was when they had agreed. In 1960, in July 1960, the government of India agreed to their memorandum representation, which again broadly is centered around the non-interference policy, which the past authorities have been negotiating with our people, that this should be upheld. The protection, ownership of the land and its resources, that our ways of life will not be interfered in the aspects of the religious practices or social practices or the customary practices, the laws. This will be respected, and that no act of Parliament of India will be imposed directly on us unless the State Assembly of Nagaland, by a resolution, so decides to endorse. That was the understanding. And so after the agreement was signed, about 2 years after that, in 1962, the Parliament of India enacted the Article 371A and the provisions thereof. You are all very familiar with Article 371A, and it guarantees, the Constitution guarantees to the people of Nagaland that the center or the Union of India will not interfere into these aspects of our life along with the land. The ownerships will be recognized and upheld. So after that only, on the 1st of December 1963, we entered into the Union of India as the 16th state. And so we have been under the Union of India as a state ever since 1963, 1st December. We have always upheld this agreement and respected the clauses, the articles that have been given as a guarantee to us. But over the years, over the decades, I think certain things are not very right. Encroachments, infringements are taking place in the rights that have been guaranteed to us. And in many areas of our lives, we are beginning to resent this type of move. So besides other issues, particularly on the proposed enactment of the Uniform Civil Code, the UCC, our people has not accepted even the idea of such an enactment and implementation of the UCC in our part of the country, especially in our state.